My name is Regina King. I am 34 years old, and I am a senior forensic accountant living in Atlanta, Georgia. For 7 years, I shared my bed, my home, and my bank account with a man named Terrence. I thought we were building an empire together. I thought he was the ambitious real estate mogul he claimed to be. But I was wrong. I was sleeping next to a parasite, a man who looked at my success and saw nothing but a personal ATM. I spend my days tracking down hidden assets for the FBI and exposing corporate fraud. I can find a single missing penny in a billion-dollar ledger. Yet somehow I missed the thief sitting right across from me at the dinner table. Until one text message changed everything. I was sitting in a high-level briefing with 3 federal agents and a room full of lawyers. The air conditioning was humming and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. We were closing in on a RICO case involving shell companies in the Caymans. My phone was face down on the mahogany table, but my Apple Watch vibrated against my wrist. I glanced down, expecting a notification from my assistant. Instead, I saw a message from my husband, Terrence. The preview text made my blood run cold, but my face remained completely stone. It read, "Regina, I am done. I am sick of your boring, controlling face. I am leaving you and moving to Miami with Tiffany. She is 20 years old, she is hot, and she actually knows how to treat a man. Oh, and by the way, I have already emptied our joint account, $450,000. Consider it reimbursement for the years I wasted with you. Ha ha." I did not gasp. I did not cry. I did not flip the table. I simply tapped the reply button and typed 2 words. Good luck. I hit send. One of the agents looked at me and asked if everything was all right. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "My husband just committed suicide," metaphorically speaking. If you are watching this and you have ever felt the floor drop out from under you, or if you have ever been betrayed by the one person who was supposed to protect you, please hit that like button right now. Subscribe to my channel so you do not miss how I turned this disaster into a masterclass on revenge. And please drop a comment telling me what city you are watching from, because I want to know where my squad is at. Now let me tell you about the longest drive of my life. I walked out of that federal building with my head held high, but inside my chest was a war zone. I got into my car, and before I even started the engine, I pulled up my banking app. Face ID logged me in, and the little loading wheel spun for what felt like an eternity. Then the numbers flashed on the screen. 0.00, my checking account, 0, my savings, 0, the rainy day fund, 0. I felt a physical punch to my gut. $450,000. Gone. That money was for our future properties. It was years of my bonuses, years of late nights auditing spreadsheets until my eyes burned. He took it all. But he did not stop there. I scrolled down to my credit cards. The Platinum Amex, the Sapphire Reserve, all of them were maxed out. Pending charges at luxury car dealerships in Miami, pending charges at 5-star hotels, pending charges at Cartier. He had not just left me. He had tried to cripple me. He wanted to leave me destitute so I could not fight back. He wanted me broken. I drove home on autopilot. The Atlanta traffic was a blur of red brake lights and gray concrete. I tried to call him, straight to voicemail. I tried to check the home security cameras on my phone. Offline. My stomach twisted. He had planned this. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a calculated strike. Terrence was not smart enough to do this alone. Someone had been whispering in his ear. Someone had told him exactly when to strike. I pulled into our driveway. The house looked normal from the outside. The lawn was freshly cut. The hydrangeas were blooming. It was the picture of suburban perfection. But the moment I put my key in the lock, I knew the soul of the house was gone. The door swung open, and instead of the smell of my vanilla bean candles, I smelled dust and emptiness. I stepped into the foyer, and the echo of my heels on the hardwood floor was deafening. It was gone. Everything was gone. The living room was stripped bare, the custom Italian leather sectional I had imported. Gone. The 75-inch television. Gone. The original Basquiat print I had bought at an auction last year. Gone. He had even taken the curtains. The sunlight streamed in harsh and unforgiving, illuminating the dust bunnies dancing on the floor where our life used to be. I walked through the house like a ghost. The dining room was empty. The guest room was empty. He had hired movers, professional movers. He must have done it this morning right after I left for work. The neighbors probably watched the trucks pull up and thought we were moving together. They probably waved. I walked up the stairs, my hand gripping the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. I went into the master bedroom. Our king-size bed was gone. The mattress where we slept, the pillows where we whispered promises to each other, all of it was gone. My walk-in closet was ravaged. He had left my clothes, but he took anything with resale value. My designer handbags, my jewelry box, even my collection of limited edition sneakers. He stripped me of my assets. He stripped me of my comfort. He wanted me to come home to a shell. He wanted me to feel small. He wanted me to understand that without him, I was nothing. But the worst part was not the missing furniture. It was not the empty bank account. It was what I found in the master bathroom. I walked in and saw the only thing he had left behind. On the giant mirror above the double vanity, he had written a message. He used my favorite lipstick, a $50 tube of Rouge Louboutin. The red wax was smeared across the glass in jagged, angry letters. It read, "Controlling old hag." I stared at those words, controlling, because I managed the budget, because I made sure bills were paid on time, because I stopped him from investing in obvious pyramid schemes. Old. I am 34. I look better than women half my age. Hag. Because I demanded respect. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to humiliate me. He wanted me to look at myself in that mirror and see a failure. He wanted me to break down and cry. He wanted me to call him begging. He wanted me to fall apart so he could laugh about it with Tiffany in some oceanfront suite in Miami while drinking champagne bought with my money. I stood there in the silence of that empty house. The smell of the waxy lipstick filled my nose. My reflection was cut in half by the red letters. I could see the tired lines around my eyes. I could see the shock still lingering in my posture. But then I looked closer. I looked past the insults. I looked past the empty room. I looked into my own eyes. And I saw something that Terrence obviously missed. He forgot who I am. He forgot what I do for a living. I hunt financial criminals for sport. I trace money that cartels try to hide in the desert. I untangle webs of fraud that span continents. And he thought he could steal $500,000 from me and drive off into the sunset. He thought this was the end of the story. He thought he had won. He thought he was the main character. But he was just the prologue. I reached into my purse and pulled out a makeup wipe. I walked up to the mirror and wiped a clean circle through the word hag so I could see my face clearly. I did not cry. I did not scream. My heart rate actually slowed down. I felt a cold calm wash over me. It was the same feeling I get when I find the smoking gun in a massive audit. It is the feeling of absolute clarity. Terrence made one fatal mistake. He thought the money in that joint account was just cash sitting there. He did not know how I structured our finances. He did not know that the $450,000 he withdrew was not technically savings. It was a disbursement from a business line of credit attached to a shell company I set up for him 3 years ago to help him feel like a big-shot CEO. He was legally the director of that company, which meant he did not just steal from his wife, he embezzled corporate funds. And because he moved it across state lines to Florida to fund a lifestyle with his mistress, he just committed wire fraud. And because he certainly is not going to report that income to the IRS, he is about to commit tax evasion. He wanted a war. He wanted to leave me with nothing. But standing in that empty bathroom, I realized he had given me everything I needed. He handed me the weapon to destroy him. I looked at my phone. The battery was at 20%. I did not call my mother to cry. I did not call my best friend to vent. I walked downstairs to the kitchen island, which was the only piece of furniture too heavy for him to steal. I opened my laptop. I connected to the hotspot on my phone because he had canceled the home internet. I logged into the federal database. I am not just a scorned wife. I am a senior forensic accountant, and the hunt was about to begin. Terrence thought he was living the dream in Miami, but he was about to wake up in a nightmare. I cracked my knuckles and started typing. He wants to play dirty good. I love getting my hands dirty. I had not even closed my laptop screen when the banging started. It was not a polite knock. It was a rhythmic, aggressive pounding that shook the heavy oak frame of my front door. I knew exactly who it was. There is only one person in this world who feels entitled enough to batter down my door less than 3 hours after my life imploded. Jessica, Terrence's older sister. The woman who had smiled in my face at Thanksgiving dinners for 7 years while simultaneously making comments about how my hair looked more professional when it was straightened. I took a deep breath. I walked to the door not with fear, but with the exhaustion of a woman who has already dealt with enough foolishness for one lifetime. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. Jessica breezed past me without a word. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not offer a hug. She marched into my foyer, her eyes scanning the empty spaces where my furniture used to be. She was wearing her typical yoga mom uniform designer leggings and an oversized sweater that cost more than my car payment. She spun around to face me, her blonde ponytail swinging, and the look on her face was not sympathy. It was accusation. "Where is he?" she demanded. Her voice was shrill, echoing off the bare walls. I closed the door slowly and leaned against it, crossing my arms over my chest. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "He is in Miami, Jessica." "But you already knew that, didn't you?" She scoffed and crossed her arms, mirroring my stance but lacking my composure. "Of course I knew. He called me from the road. He was crying, Regina, literally sobbing. Do you have any idea what you have done to him?" I almost laughed. I truly almost laughed out loud. The audacity was breathtaking. I pushed off the door and walked into the empty living room, my heels clicking on the hardwood. What I have done to him, that is interesting. Because last time I checked, I was the one standing in an empty house with a drained bank account. Your brother stole $450,000 from me, Jessica. He took the bed. He took the television. He left me with nothing but a tube of lipstick and insults written on my bathroom mirror. Jessica waved her hand dismissively, as if I had just complained about him leaving the toilet seat up. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. He did not steal anything. That was community property. He worked for that money just as hard as you did. And he took the furniture because he needed it. He is starting over with nothing, because you suffocated him." I felt the heat rising in my chest, the familiar burn of injustice that I had swallowed for 7 years. I stared at her, incredulous. He worked for it. Jessica, your brother has not held a steady job since Obama was in office. I am the one who worked 80-hour weeks. I am the one who missed birthdays and anniversaries to close audits. Terrence spent his days playing golf and pretending to be a real estate mogul. She took a step closer to me, invading my personal space. Her eyes narrowed. "That is exactly the problem, Regina. You never respected him. You always made him feel small. You used your money and your career to control him. He told me everything. He told me how you monitored his spending, how you made him ask for permission to buy things. A man needs to feel like a man, Regina, especially a black man. They need respect. They need to feel like the king of their castle. But you just had to be the boss." There it was, the weaponization of his identity against me. It was a tactic Jessica loved to use. She loved to lecture me, a black woman, on how to properly love and support a black man, as if she understood the dynamics of our culture better than I did, as if my desire for financial stability was somehow an act of emasculation. I kept my voice low, deadly calm. "I monitored his spending because he has a gambling addiction, Jessica. Or did he forget to mention that part when he was crying to you on the phone? Did he tell you about the time I had to wire $20,000 to a bookie in Las Vegas because 2 guys were threatening to break his legs? Did he tell you that I am the one who paid off his student loans? Did he tell you that this house, the roof over your head right now, is in my name because his credit score is lower than his IQ?" Jessica flushed pink, but she did not back down. She shook her head fiercely. "That was one time. Everyone makes mistakes. He was trying to invest. He has a vision, Regina. He is an entrepreneur. But you never supported his dreams. You were always so critical, so negative. You are just so." She paused, searching for the word. Her eyes flicked up and down my body, taking in my stiff posture, my unsmiling face. "You are so aggressive." The word hung in the air between us, heavy and ugly. Aggressive. The universal code word used to silence women like me when we dare to stand up for ourselves, when we refuse to be doormats, when we demand accountability. If I yell, I am angry. If I speak calmly but firmly, I am aggressive. There is no winning. I stepped closer to her, closing the gap. My voice dropped an octave. Aggressive. Is that what we are calling it now? When I paid for his real estate license classes 3 times because he kept failing the exam, was I being aggressive? When I set up a shell company and put him on the payroll just so he would have health insurance and a title to put on LinkedIn, was that aggressive? Or was I just being a supportive wife who carried a dead weight on her back for 7 years, hoping he would finally learn to walk on his own? Jessica looked away, unable to hold my gaze, but she was not done fighting. She walked over to the window, looking out at the driveway. He said you were emotionally abusive. He said he felt like a prisoner in his own home. He found someone who appreciates him, Regina. Tiffany. She is young, she is sweet, she looks up to him. She does not challenge him on every little thing. She makes him feel powerful. I let out a sharp breath. Of course. Tiffany. The 20-year-old Instagram model who thinks Terrence is a wealthy businessman because he drives the Range Rover I paid for. Tiffany does not challenge him because she does not know him. She sees the suit and the car and the credit card. She does not see the maxed out limits. She does not see the incompetence. She does not see the man who waits for his wife to go to sleep so he can steal her jewelry. I looked at Jessica's back. You are enabling him, Jessica. You have always enabled him. You baby him. You tell him he is a victim every time he fails. And now you are standing in my living room defending a man who left his wife destitute. Do you have any idea what he has done? He did not just leave. He committed crimes, real federal crimes. She spun around, her face twisted in a sneer. Oh, here we go with the lawyer talk. You are always trying to sound so smart. He did not commit any crimes. He took money from a joint account. That is civil. It is a divorce dispute. Stop trying to make him into a villain just because you are bitter that he chose someone younger and hotter. Bitter? She thought I was bitter. I was not bitter. I was precise. I was calculating. And I was done being the villain in her twisted narrative. I walked over to the front door and opened it wide. The afternoon sun spilled in blindingly bright. Get out, Jessica. She blinked, surprised by my sudden dismissal. Excuse me. I pointed outside. Get out of my house. And when you talk to your brother, tell him I said enjoy the money. Tell him to spend every single cent, because he is going to need the memories of that luxury when reality hits him. Jessica grabbed her purse, pulling it tight against her shoulder. You are making a huge mistake, Regina. He was willing to be amicable. He just wanted a clean break. But if you want to play hardball, he will destroy you. He knows things about you. He knows your secrets. I actually smiled then. A cold, sharp smile that did not reach my eyes. My secrets. Jessica, I am an open book. My life is audits and tax codes. But your brother, his life is a house of cards built on a foundation of lies and my money. And I just pulled the bottom card. Now get out before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. She huffed indignantly, marching to the door. She paused on the threshold, looking me up and down one last time with pure disdain. You will die alone, Regina. You are too hard. No man wants a woman who acts like a man. I hope that money keeps you warm at night. She slammed the door in my face. The house shook again. I stood there in the silence, staring at the wood grain. Too hard. Aggressive. Act like a man. The words echoed in my head, bouncing off the empty walls. I walked back to the kitchen island. My hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Jessica thought she had won that argument. She thought she had put me in my place. She thought she had defended her baby brother against the big bad wolf. She had no idea that she had just given me the final piece of motivation I needed. They thought I was aggressive. They thought I was controlling. Fine. If they wanted a villain, I would be the best villain they had ever seen. I would be the villain who signed their checks and audited their lives. I sat back down at my laptop. The screen was still glowing. The IRS whistleblower form was half filled out. I deleted the draft. I was not just going to report him for tax evasion. That was too simple. That was too quick. Jessica said he wanted to feel like a man. She said he wanted to be an entrepreneur. She said he was starting over. I opened a new tab and typed in the search bar, Miami-Dade County property records. If Terrence was going to play real estate mogul in Miami, he was going to need a place to live. And if I knew my husband, and I knew him better than anyone, he would try to rent the flashiest penthouse he could find to impress Tiffany. He would use the stolen money for a massive down payment on a lease, or maybe even try to buy something stupid. I pulled up his credit report. As his legal spouse, I still had access. I watched the inquiries pop up. There it was, a credit check from a luxury leasing agency in South Beach run just yesterday. He was moving fast. I picked up my phone. I dialed a number I had not used in years. A private investigator I used to work with on asset recovery cases. He picked up on the second ring. Regina. To what do I owe the pleasure? I need a favor, Marcus. I need you to find out exactly where Terrence King is staying in Miami, and I need you to find out who the leasing agent is. There was a pause. Then Marcus chuckled. Trouble in paradise. You could say that. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the empty spot where my wedding photo used to hang. I am about to teach my husband a lesson about finance, Marcus. I am going to teach him that when you spend money that belongs to a corporation, you are not an investor. You are a target. I hung up the phone. Jessica's voice was still ringing in my ears. You are too aggressive. I looked at the reflection in the black screen of my laptop. I did not look aggressive. I looked focused. I looked like a woman who was about to turn an eviction notice into a spectator sport. Jessica wanted me to be soft. She wanted me to cry. But tears do not pay the bills, and they certainly do not recover stolen assets. I opened my banking app again, staring at the zero balance. It did not hurt as much this time. Now it just looked like a scoreboard. And the game had just begun. I was sitting at the kitchen island staring at the property records on my laptop screen when my phone lit up again. The room was dark, the only light coming from the glowing monitor. It was 10:30 at night. I looked at the caller ID. It was a FaceTime request. The name flashing on the screen was simply him. I had not had the time to change it to defendant yet, but that would come soon enough. For a split second, I considered letting it ring. I considered ignoring him, just like I had ignored his sister. But my training kicked in. In my line of work, evidence is everything. A confession is gold, but a video recording of the suspect bragging about his crimes is platinum. I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and tapped the screen to start the recording function on my laptop, which was facing my phone. Then I answered. The darkness of my kitchen was instantly blasted away by blinding white light. On my screen was a view that looked like a rap video cliché: white marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, and there he was, Terrence. He was wearing a white linen shirt unbuttoned halfway down his chest, holding a glass of champagne that looked suspiciously like the bottle we were saving for our 10th anniversary. He looked manic. His eyes were wide, his skin was glowing with sweat and excitement. He did not look like a man who felt guilty. He looked like a man who had just won the lottery. Regina, he shouted over the thumping bass of house music playing in the background. Look at you, sitting in the dark. You look like a ghost girl. You look miserable. I kept my face completely neutral. I did not speak. I just watched him. He laughed a loud, arrogant sound that grated on my nerves. Cat got your tongue. Or maybe you are just jealous. Look at this view, Regina. Look at it. He spun the phone around, showing me the Miami skyline glittering in the distance. This is the penthouse suite at the W South Beach. Do you know how much this costs a night? $5,000. $5,000. You would never spend $5,000 on a hotel room. You would say it is a waste of capital. You would say we should put it in a 401k. God, you are so boring. He flipped the camera back to his face, taking a long sip of champagne. I am living life, Regina. Finally. For 7 years, I felt like I was in a prison. A prison made of budgets and spreadsheets and your constant nagging. Terrence, do not buy those shoes. Terrence, why did you withdraw cash? Terrence, you need to get a job. Well, guess what? I do not need a job anymore. I am rich. I finally spoke. My voice was quiet, barely a whisper. You are not rich, Terrence. You are a thief. He scoffed, stepping back to reveal more of the room. A thief. Please, I took what was mine. I put up with you for 7 years. That is work. That is hard labor. This money is my severance package. And let me tell you, I am spending it right." He walked over to a white leather sofa where a pile of shopping bags was sitting. Bright orange Hermes boxes, black Chanel bags, Louis Vuitton duffels. It looked like he had raided the design district. He picked up a small black quilted bag. It was a classic Chanel flat bag with gold hardware. The exact bag I had looked at 3 Christmases in a row. The bag I told myself I would buy when I made partner. The bag I decided was too frivolous because we needed to replace the HVAC system in the rental property. "Recognize this?" he asked, dangling the chain strap in front of the camera. "You wanted this so bad, didn't you? You used to stare at it in the magazine, but you never bought it. You were too cheap. You were too scared to enjoy your money. Well, Tiffany loves it. She says it goes perfectly with her eyes." At the mention of her name, a figure appeared in the background. Tiffany. She was wearing a neon pink bikini that barely covered anything, and a sheer cover-up. She looked young, painfully young. She waved at the camera holding a matching glass of champagne. "Hi, Regina," she chirped. "Yeah." Her voice was high and airy, completely devoid of any understanding of the situation. "Thanks for the bag. It is literally my dream bag." "Terrence is so generous. You guys should have totally come to Miami together. The vibe here is amazing." I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. It was not jealousy. It was disgust. She was a child playing with stolen toys. She had no idea that the bag she was holding was evidence in a federal investigation. Terrence pulled her close, kissing her on the cheek while staring directly at me through the screen. "See that, Regina? Appreciation, gratitude. She treats me like a king. She does not ask where the money came from. She just says, 'Thank you, Daddy.' That is what a man needs." He pushed Tiffany gently out of the frame and sat down on the sofa, spreading his arms wide. "And do not worry about the money running out. You think I am stupid. You think I am just going to blow it all. No, I have a plan. A big plan." I leaned forward slightly, interested in what delusion he had cooked up. "Oh, really?" I asked dryly. "What is the plan, Terrence? Are you going to become a professional shopper?" He rolled his eyes. "See? There it is, the sarcasm, the doubt. You never believed in me. That is why I had to leave. But watch this. I am taking the rest of the cash, about $300,000, and I am dumping it all into crypto. There is this new coin my boy told me about. It is going to the moon, Regina. 10 times returns in a month. And then I am buying real estate. Not those boring rental duplexes you like. I am talking luxury condos, pre-construction. I am going to flip them. I am going to be a billionaire by Christmas." I stared at him. He was talking about high-risk speculative assets using funds that were traced directly to a business line of credit. He was literally confessing to money laundering on a recorded line. "Terrence," I said slowly, making sure my words were clear, "you do realize that money is not yours to invest, right? That money belongs to King Consulting Group. It is a corporate loan." He waved his hand dismissively, spilling a little champagne on the white rug. "Who cares? It is my company. My name is on the papers. You put it there. President Terrence King. Remember, that means I can do whatever I want with the money. It is executive discretion. You are just an accountant, Regina. You focus on the pennies. I focus on the vision. That is the difference between us. You are a worker bee. I am a king." A king. A king who did not know the difference between revenue and a loan. A king who thought embezzling funds was executive discretion. "You know what your problem is," he continued, his voice getting louder. "You have no imagination. You go to work every day. You sit in that gray office. You look at numbers. You come home. You cook dinner. You watch the news. It is pathetic. You are wasting your life. Look at me. I am in Miami. I am drinking vintage champagne. I have a model on my lap. I am winning, Regina. I am winning so hard it must kill you." He stood up again, pacing the room. "And the best part is I deleted the app. I blocked your number on my real phone. This is a burner. You cannot reach me. You cannot nag me. You cannot serve me papers. I am a ghost. I am free." Tiffany popped back into the frame, giggling. "Terry, come on. The Uber is here. We are going to live. DJ Khaled is supposed to be there." Terrence grilled at the camera. "You hear that? DJ Khaled, we are going to the club. We are going to get a table. Bottle service, sparklers, the whole 9 yards. Probably drop another 10 grand tonight, just because I can, just because I know it hurts you to see your precious savings burning up. He leaned close to the camera, his face filling the screen. His eyes were bloodshot. Goodbye, Regina. Have a nice life in that empty house. Maybe you can audit the dust bunnies. Maybe you can calculate how lonely you are. Do not wait up for me. He laughed again, a cruel, maniacal sound. Then the screen went black. The call ended. I sat there in the silence of my kitchen. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. The recording on my laptop stopped and saved automatically. I clicked on the file. I replayed the last 30 seconds. I am taking the rest of the cash and dumping it all into crypto. It is my company. My name is on the papers. You are just an accountant. I paused the video on the frame where he was holding up the Chanel bag. I zoomed in. I could see the serial number on the authenticity card peeking out of the box. He called me boring. He called me a worker bee. He said I had no imagination. He was right about one thing. I am an accountant. But he was wrong about the rest. I do not just look at numbers. I look at patterns. I look at mistakes. And Terrence had just made a catalog of mistakes in a 5-minute phone call. He admitted to taking the money. He admitted to the intent to invest it, which proved he was not just spending it on necessities but using corporate funds for personal gain. He admitted to fleeing the state, and he showed me exactly where he was staying, the W South Beach, penthouse. I opened a new browser tab. I pulled up the floor plans for the hotel. I checked the rates. He wasn't lying, $5,000 a night, plus taxes and resort fees. He was burning through cash at a rate of roughly $10,000 a day if you included the shopping and the clubbing. At this rate, he would be insolvent in less than a month. But I did not want to wait a month. I wanted to accelerate the timeline. He said he was going to put the money in crypto. That meant he had to transfer it from the bank account to a crypto exchange, which meant there would be a digital footprint. I looked at the time, 11 p.m. The banks were closed, but the fraud department hotlines were open 24/7. Terrence thought he was free because he had a burner phone and a view of the ocean. He thought he was untouchable because he was the president of the company. He forgot that every president answers to a board of directors, or in this case, the registered agent and the person who personally guaranteed the loan. Me. I picked up my phone. I dialed the number for the Business Banking Fraud Division. I had the recording queued up on my laptop. I was not crying. I was not lonely. I was energized. A voice came on the line. Bank of America Fraud Department. How can I help you? Yes, I said, my voice steady and professional. My name is Regina King. I am the guarantor for a business line of credit ending in 4598. I need to report unauthorized activity. The officer on the account has misappropriated funds for personal use and I have video evidence of his confession. I need to freeze all associated assets immediately. There was a pause on the other end. Then the sound of keys clacking. One moment, Mrs. King. Let me pull up the account. I waited. I looked at the frozen image of Terrence laughing on my screen. Good luck, Terrence, I whispered to the empty room. You are going to need it, because the worker bee just started stinging, and unlike you, I do not miss. I hung up the phone after 45 minutes of intense discussion. The accounts were flagged. But that was just step one. The bank would investigate, but banks move slow. I needed to move fast. He mentioned crypto. He mentioned real estate. I opened up the IRS whistleblower submission portal again. I had closed it earlier thinking I would just track him down. But now it was personal. He had mocked my career. He had mocked my identity. He had brought a 20-year-old girl into my financial business. I started typing. This time I did not hesitate. I filled in every field. Name of violator, Terrence King. Nature of violation, embezzlement, wire fraud, tax evasion. Estimated dollar amount, $450,000. Evidence video confession available upon request. Bank statements attached. I hit submit. A confirmation number popped up on the screen. I sat back in my chair. The adrenaline was starting to fade, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He wanted to be a billionaire by Christmas. I would make sure he was an inmate by Halloween. I looked around my empty kitchen. It was dark. It was quiet. But for the first time since I read that text message, I did not feel empty. I felt full of purpose. I walked to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. I did not need champagne. I needed hydration. Because tomorrow was going to be a very busy day. I had to call the leasing office of the W South Beach. I had to contact the Miami-Dade Police Department to file a report about the stolen items. And I had a little surprise to arrange for his crypto investment. Terrence wanted to play Monopoly. He wanted to buy hotels and houses. He forgot the most important rule of the game: do not go to jail. I took a sip of water and smiled. A real smile this time. Game on. Most women in my position would be hysterical right now. They would be drowning in a bottle of wine or screaming at a dispatcher on the 911 emergency line. But I am not most women. I am a forensic accountant. And when a crime has been committed, I do not get emotional. I get analytical. I sat there in the dark kitchen, illuminated only by the blue glow of my laptop screen. The silence in the house was heavy, but my mind was moving at the speed of light. I did not call the police. Not yet. Calling the police now would be a mistake. It would be a domestic dispute. He is my husband. It is a joint account. The police would tell me it is a civil matter and tell me to hire a divorce lawyer. They would say he has a right to the marital funds. They would write a report and file it away in a cabinet while Terrence sipped mimosas in South Beach. No. I needed something stronger than the police. I needed leverage. I needed to turn this from a messy divorce into a federal indictment. I cracked my knuckles and logged into the back end of our financial portfolio. Terrence thought he was so smart. He thought he had pulled off the heist of the century. He saw a balance of $450,000 in an account labeled savings, and he took it. He assumed it was the money I had been putting away from my bonuses for the last 7 years. He assumed it was the nest egg for our future children. He was wrong. I stopped trusting Terrence exactly 6 months ago. It was a Tuesday. He came home from a quote-unquote networking event at midnight. He walked into the bedroom trying to be quiet, but he stumbled over his own feet. When I rolled over to ask him how it went, the smell hit me. It was not alcohol. It was perfume. Cheap, cloying vanilla perfume. It was sticking to his shirt like a second skin. It certainly was not my scent. I wear Chanel. That smell was the scent of betrayal. I did not confront him that night. I did not scream. I did not throw his clothes on the lawn. Instead, I did what I do best. I started an investigation. I watched him. I tracked his movements. I noticed the long lunches. I noticed the withdrawals for cash. And I realized that my husband was not just a cheater, he was a liability. So I set a trap, a financial honey trap. I opened the file on my computer labeled King Consulting Group, LLC. Terrence always complained that he did not feel like a man because I made more money than him. He complained that he did not have a title. He complained that he wanted to be a CEO. So 3 months ago, I told him I wanted to support his dreams. I told him I believed in his vision. I told him we should start a consulting firm for his real estate ventures. I can still see the smile on his face when I put the papers in front of him. He did not even read them. He just saw the words President and CEO next to his name, and he signed with a flourish. He was so busy preening he did not notice the fine print. He did not notice that I had set myself up merely as the secretary. He was the sole proprietor. He was the one with the fiduciary responsibility. I clicked on the bank statements for King Consulting Group. That $450,000 he stole was not our savings. I had moved our real savings into a high-yield trust account in my mother's name 3 weeks after I smelled that cheap vanilla perfume. The money sitting in the account Terrence just drained was a business line of credit. I had applied for it under the company's name. I used my credit score to secure it, but I put the liability entirely on the company officer, Terrence. I stared at the transaction history. One single transfer. $450,000 moved from King Consulting Group business checking to a personal account and then wired out to a crypto exchange. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. Terrence did not understand the difference between equity and debt. He saw a positive number and thought it was his asset. But that money belongs to the bank. It is a loan that was granted for specific business purposes, operating expenses, marketing, payroll, capital improvements. It was definitely not granted for purchasing a neon pink bikini for a 20-year-old mistress or renting a penthouse at the W Hotel. By taking that money and moving it to a personal account, he had pierced the corporate veil. He had committed what we in the industry call embezzlement. And because the loan was federally backed by the Small Business Administration, he had just defrauded the United States government. I opened the loan agreement document on my screen. I scrolled down to page 42. Clause 7. Regarding misuse of funds. It stated clearly that any use of funds for non-business related activities would result in immediate default and potential criminal prosecution. And then I scrolled to the signature line. There it was. Terrence King, President. He had signed his own death warrant. I leaned back in my chair. The genius of it was almost beautiful. If he had just divorced me properly, he might have gotten half of our actual assets. He might have walked away with the house or a settlement. But he was greedy. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to take everything. And in his greed, he walked right into the cage I had built for him. I looked at the clock. It was nearly midnight. Terrence was probably popping bottles in the club right now, thinking he was a millionaire. He had no idea that the clock was ticking on a massive debt that was about to come due. I started typing up my report. I needed to document everything. The timeline, the transfer, the video confession where he admitted he was going to invest the money in crypto for personal gain. This was not just a diary entry. This was an evidence file. I pulled up the terms of the line of credit again. The interest rate was prime plus 2%, but the default rate was 18%, and the penalty for fraud was 100% of the principal plus treble damages. That meant Terrence did not just owe $450,000. Once the bank found out, and they would find out because I was about to tell them, he would owe closer to $1.5 million, and he would owe it personally, because in his arrogance, he had signed a personal guarantee. I zoomed in on the signature again. I remembered the day he signed it. We were sitting at this very kitchen island. He was eating a bagel. He joked that his signature looked like an athlete's autograph. He said he was born to sign checks. He was right. He just signed a check that his life could not cash. I felt a strange sense of calm. The heartbreak I should have been feeling was buried under layers of procedural satisfaction. This is why I love my job. Numbers do not lie. People lie. Husbands lie. Mistresses lie. But the math always balances out in the end. I opened a spreadsheet and began to trace the wire transfer. He had sent it to Coinbase. I could see the routing number. He thought crypto was anonymous. He thought it was untraceable. He was an amateur. Every exchange that operates in the U.S. has to comply with Know Your Customer laws. His ID was attached to that wallet. His social security number was attached to that trade. I took a screenshot. Then I checked the credit card statements again. The business credit card. He had used it to pay for the flight to Miami. Another mistake. Using corporate credit for personal travel without a business purpose. That is another count of fraud. He had used it to pay for the dinner tonight, $300 at a steakhouse. I looked at the itemized receipt. 2 ribeyes, 2 lobster tails, a bottle of Cabernet. I hope you enjoyed that lobster, Terrence. I hope it was the best meal of your life, because it is going to be the most expensive meal you ever ate. I compiled all the documents into a single PDF file. I named it the King Case. It sounded official. It sounded final. I closed my laptop and stood up. The house was still dark. The empty spaces where the furniture used to be were still there, but they did not feel empty anymore. They felt like a blank canvas, a clean slate. Terrence thought he had stripped me bare. He thought he had left me with nothing, but he had actually given me a gift. He had removed himself from my life, and he had given me the perfect way to ensure he could never come back. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. The world was sleeping. The neighbors were sleeping. Terrence was partying, but I was awake, and I was dangerous. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I would make the call, not to the police, to the bank's fraud department, and then to the IRS. I would tell them that as the responsible party for the accounting, I had discovered an irregularity. I would play the part of the concerned professional. I would say that the president of the company had gone rogue. I would hand them the evidence on a silver platter, and then I would sit back and watch the show. I turned away from the window and walked up the stairs to my empty bedroom. I lay down on the floor where my bed used to be. It was hard and cold, but I did not mind. It kept me alert. I closed my eyes and pictured Terrence's face. I pictured the moment the bank froze his accounts. I pictured the moment his card was declined at the hotel. I pictured the look on Tiffany's face when she realized her sugar daddy was actually a broke fraudster. "Good night, Terrence," I whispered into the darkness. "Sleep tight, because the forensic accountant is coming for you, and she always gets her man. You might be wondering why I did not just call the police. You might be thinking that when someone steals $500,000, you call 911. But here is the thing about the local police. They deal with street crime. They deal with broken windows and stolen cars and domestic disputes. If I called the Atlanta Police Department and told them my husband took money from our joint business account, they would shrug. They would tell me it is a civil matter. They would say that since his name is on the paperwork, he has a right to access the funds. They would write a report that would gather dust in a basement somewhere, and Terrence would never see the inside of a jail cell. But there is one organization in this country that does not care about domestic disputes. They do not care about your feelings. They do not care if you are going through a messy divorce. They only care about one thing, the math, the Internal Revenue Service. Most people are terrified of the IRS. They sweat when they get a letter in the mail. But for a forensic accountant like me, the IRS is not a boogeyman. The IRS is a weapon, a nuclear weapon. And I was about to drop the bomb right on Terrence's head. I sat there in the darkness of my kitchen and opened a new browser window. I navigated to the official IRS website. The white and blue homepage glowed on my screen. It looked boring to the untrained eye, but to me, it looked like justice. Here is the beautiful logic of the American tax system that Terrence was too stupid to understand. In the United States, all income is taxable. It does not matter if you earned it working at a grocery store. It does not matter if you earned it day trading stocks. And it definitely does not matter if you earned it by stealing. There is a very famous case that every accounting student learns in their first year. Al Capone, the most notorious gangster in American history. The FBI could not catch him for the murders. They could not catch him for the bootlegging. Do you know who caught him? The accountants. They caught him because he was making millions of dollars from illegal activities, but he was not reporting it on his tax return. Illegal income is still taxable income. Terrence had just withdrawn $450,000 from a corporate account. He did not use it for business. He used it for himself. In the eyes of the law, that money is no longer a loan. It is no longer business capital. It is now classified as income, personal income. And I knew for a fact that Terrence was not planning to declare that $450,000 on his 1040 form next April. I cracked my knuckles and clicked on the search bar. I typed in 4 numbers and 1 letter. Form 3949A. This is the information referral form. This is the form you use to report suspected tax fraud. I started filling it out. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Section A, information about the person or business you are reporting. Name, Terrence King. Social security number. I typed it in from memory. I knew his social better than I knew my own. Address. This was the fun part. I typed in the address of the W South Beach Hotel, penthouse suite, Miami Beach, Florida. Section B, nature of the violation. This is where I had to be precise. I did not just check one box. I checked them all. False exemption, unreported income, false deductions, kickbacks, wagering, and gambling. I stopped at the box that said organized crime. I thought about it for a second. Terrence was definitely a criminal, but he was too disorganized to be organized crime. He was just a chaotic idiot with a debit card. I left that one blank. Then I moved to the narrative section. This is where you explain to the agent what is happening. I did not write this like a scorned wife. I wrote it like a federal agent. I wrote, the subject is the sole officer of King Consulting Group, LLC. On the date of July 15th, the subject withdrew the entirety of the company's operating capital derived from a small business administration-backed line of credit. The subject then transferred these funds to a personal account and subsequently to a cryptocurrency exchange. The subject has been observed on video recording admitting that these funds are for personal use, including luxury travel clothing and entertainment. The subject has no other source of income and has historically failed to pay estimated quarterly taxes. I paused and took a sip of my water. I was not just reporting him for stealing the money, I was reporting him for what the theft represented. You see, when you take money from a corporation and spend it on yourself without declaring it as a dividend or a salary, that is called piercing the corporate veil. It means the company is a sham. It means the limited liability protection that keeps your personal assets safe is gone. By doing what he did, Terrence had exposed himself completely. If the IRS audited him, and they definitely would audit him, they would not just look at the $450,000, they would look at everything. They would look at the car he drove. They would look at the clothes he wore. They would look at every single Venmo transaction he ever made. And then there was the cherry on top, the money laundering. Terrence told me he was moving the money to crypto. He thought he was hiding it. But what he was actually doing was structuring. He was moving large sums of money in a way designed to evade reporting requirements. That is a federal felony. It carries a prison sentence of up to 5 years, just for the act of moving the money. That does not even count the tax evasion. I looked at the screen. The form was almost full, but I was not done. There is another form. A form that most people do not know about, but it is my favorite form in the entire IRS library. Form 211, Application for Award for Original Information. You see, the U.S. government knows that catching tax cheats is hard work. They do not have enough agents to watch everyone, so they incentivize people to snitch. If you provide information that leads to the collection of unpaid taxes, the IRS will pay you a reward. A whistleblower award. The reward is typically between 15 and 30% of the total amount collected. I did the math in my head. $450,000 of unreported income, plus penalties, which are usually 75% for civil fraud, plus interest. The total bill Terrence would owe the government would be somewhere around $800,000. 30% of $800,000 is $240,000. I almost laughed out loud in the quiet kitchen. Terrence thought he was bankrupting me. He thought he was leaving me with nothing. But by turning him in, I was going to make almost $250,000. He was literally going to pay for my divorce. He was going to pay for my new furniture. He was going to pay for my vacation to Fiji. And the best part was, he would be paying for it while making 10 cents an hour, stamping license plates in a federal prison. I filled out Form 211 with a smile on my face. Name of claimant, Regina King. Occupation, senior forensic accountant. Relationship to taxpayer spouse. I attached the video file of the FaceTime call. I attached the PDF of the bank statements. I attached a screenshot of his credit report showing the Miami inquiry. I was building a cage around him, a cage made of paper and digital footprints. And he was too busy drinking champagne to hear the lock clicking shut. I sat back and looked at the 2 completed forms. Form 3949A was the hammer. Form 211 was the paycheck. I thought about Terrence in that hotel room. I thought about him looking at Tiffany and feeling like a big man. I thought about him laughing at me, calling me boring, calling me a worker bee. He had no idea who he was dealing with. He thought because I was quiet, I was weak. He thought because I followed the rules, I was stupid. But the rules are not there to hold me back. The rules are the tools I use to dismantle people like him. He forgot the most important rule of the street and the boardroom. Never mess with the person who handles the money. I hovered my mouse over the submit button. This was the point of no return. Once I sent this, there was no taking it back. The IRS machine is slow, but it is unstoppable. Once they opened a file on Terrence King, his life as he knew it was over. His credit would be ruined, his assets would be seized, his passport would be flagged. He would never be able to get a loan or buy a house or even open a bank account without the government knowing. he would be radioactive. And Tiffany. Sweet young Tiffany. Do you think she's going to stick around when the federal agents show up at the hotel door? Do you think she's going to visit him in prison? Do you think she is going to wait for a man who owes the government $1 million? No, she is going to run so fast she will leave skid marks. I took a deep breath. I thought about the years I spent supporting him, the years I spent defending him to my family, the years I spent dimming my own light so he would not feel overshadowed. I thought about the aggressive comments from Jessica. I thought about the lipstick on my mirror. You called me a hag, Terrence. You called me controlling. Well, you are about to see what real control looks like. I clicked submit. The screen refreshed. Thank you for your submission. Your reference number is... I wrote the number down on a sticky note. It was done. The missile was in the air. I closed the laptop. The silence in the kitchen felt different now. It was not the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of anticipation. It was the calm before the storm. I stood up and walked to the refrigerator. I poured myself another glass of water. My internal monologue was screaming at him now. You think you took my money, Terrence? You think you pulled a fast one? But you forgot where we live. You forgot the system we live in. You did not just steal from your wife. You stole from Uncle Sam. And let me tell you something about Uncle Sam. He does not have a sense of humor. He does not care about your excuses. He does not care about your dreams. He wants his money, and he has an army of agents with badges and guns who are very good at getting it. You called me boring because I worry about taxes. Well, Terrence, you are about to have a very exciting life because dodging the IRS is the most dangerous game you can play, and you just started playing on hard mode without reading the instructions. I looked at the sticky note with the reference number. That was not just a number, that was his inmate number. I walked out of the kitchen and headed for the stairs. I was tired, but it was a good tired. It was the tiredness of a hunter who has just set the perfect trap and now only has to wait for the prey to step into it. Tomorrow I would wake up and go to work. I would audit other companies. I would catch other thieves. But in the back of my mind, I would be counting down the minutes. Tick-tock, Terrence. Tick-tock. I wondered if he was still partying. I wondered if he was sleeping. Enjoy the sheets, Terrence. Enjoy the ocean view. Because where you are going, the view is just concrete and bars. And the only person you will have to blame is yourself. Good luck with the crypto. Good luck with the real estate. Good luck with the model. But most of all, good luck with the audit, because I wrote the report, and I never make mistakes. The first 10 days after Terrence left were not spent in mourning. They were spent in silent observation. I went to work every morning at 8 o'clock sharp. I poured my coffee. I opened my spreadsheets. And on my second monitor, I opened what I affectionately called the idiot log. Most wives stalk their ex-husbands on Instagram to see if they are happy. I stalked Terrence on Instagram to calculate his burn rate. And let me tell you, Terrence was burning through cash faster than a wildfire in California. It started on day 2. He posted a photo of a steering wheel. Not just any steering wheel. It was a Lamborghini Urus, lime green. The caption read, "New city, new whip. No more driving that soccer mom SUV. Big boss moves only. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag Miami life. Hashtag crypto king." I sat in my ergonomic office chair and zoomed in on the photo. I did not look at the leather stitching. I looked at the dashboard. It was a brand new model. I did a quick mental calculation. A Lamborghini Urus costs roughly $230,000. Terrence did not have $230,000. Even with the money he stole, he would not be stupid enough to spend half of it on a car in one day. I made a few calls. I have a friend who works in auto financing in South Florida. It took me 20 minutes to find out the truth. Terrence had put down $50,000 in cash that came from a withdrawal he made at a branch in Brickell, and he financed the rest at an interest rate of 12% because his personal credit score is barely 600. I typed it into my log. Item 1, Lamborghini lease, down payment, $50,000, monthly payment, $3,800, source of funds, stolen SBA loan. He was driving a stolen car paid for with federal money, and he was posting it on the internet for the entire world to see. He was literally building the case against himself. Every story he posted was a confession. Every reel he uploaded was evidence. On day 4, he posted a video from a jewelry store in the design district. He was wearing a thick gold Cuban link chain and a diamond-encrusted watch. The caption said, "My wrist crying frozen tears. Stop playing with me." I looked up the watch. It was a factory set, Audemars Piguet. Market value $60,000. But knowing Terrence, he probably got ripped off and paid $70,000. He paid cash again. I typed it into the log. Item 2, jewelry, cost $70,000. Asset class, depreciating. By day 7, he was posting pictures of 5-star dinners, tomahawk steaks dipped in gold leaf, towers of seafood, bottles of Ace of Spades champagne lining the table. He tagged Tiffany in every photo. She was always wearing something new, a Balenciaga dress, a pair of Bottega Veneta heels. He was trying to project an image of unlimited wealth. He wanted everyone from his high school friends to his old coworkers to think he had finally made it. But to a forensic accountant, this behavior screamed one thing: panic. This is what happens when poor people get access to a large sum of money they did not earn. They do not invest it. They do not protect it. They wear it. They eat it. They drive it. They are terrified that the money will vanish, so they try to turn it into physical objects they can touch. But they do not realize that maintenance costs money. Insurance costs money. Terrence was bleeding out. By my calculations, he had spent nearly $150,000 in 10 days. At this rate, he would be broke in 3 weeks. I was in the middle of calculating the sales tax on his latest purchase when my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Jessica. I had not spoken to her since I kicked her out of my house. I thought about sending her to voicemail. But then I realized that Jessica was Terrence's mouthpiece. She was his only link to the reality he had left behind. If she was calling, it meant he wanted something, or he wanted to brag. I answered the phone and put it on speaker, setting it down next to my keyboard. "Hello, Jessica." Her voice came through loud and triumphant. She did not say hello. She just launched right into it. "I just got off the phone with him, Regina." I continued typing, not missing a beat. "That is nice. I hope he is enjoying the weather." "Oh, he is enjoying a lot more than the weather," she snapped. "He sounds amazing, Regina. I have not heard him this happy in years. He sounds light. He sounds free. He told me he just bought a Lamborghini." "A Lamborghini, Regina. Do you know how successful you have to be to drive a car like that?" I took a sip of my coffee. "I know exactly how much credit card debt you need to have to lease a car like that, Jessica." She made a noise of disgust. "There you go again, always trying to bring him down. You just cannot stand it, can you? You cannot stand that he is thriving without you. He told me about the penthouse. He told me about the investments he is making. He is building an empire down there. And here you are sitting in that empty house all by yourself." I leaned back in my chair. "Jessica, he has been gone for 10 days. He is not building an empire. He is on an extended vacation. And vacations end." She laughed a cruel, high-pitched sound. "This is not a vacation. This is his new life. He told me he is looking at buying a condo. He said he is going to move me and Mom down there once he gets settled. He wants us to be part of his success. He said he wants to take care of the people who actually believed in him, unlike you." I felt a twinge of pity for her. Not much, but a little. She actually believed him. She believed that the man who had borrowed $500 from her last Christmas to buy video games was suddenly a real estate tycoon. "He is lying to you, Jessica," I said calmly. "He is spending money he does not own, and when the money runs out, and it will run out, he is going to come crashing down. And I suggest you do not pack your bags for Miami just yet unless you plan on visiting him in a federal detention center." "You are just jealous," she screamed. "You are a bitter, lonely, hateful woman. You want him to fail, but he is not going to fail. He has Tiffany now. She supports him. She believes in his vision. He told me she is planning a huge party for his birthday next week on a yacht." "A yacht, Regina? When was the last time you took him on a yacht?" "Never. You took him to budget-friendly, all-inclusive resorts. You treated him like a child. Tiffany treats him like a king." I looked at the calendar. His birthday was in 5 days. A yacht party. That would cost at least $10,000 for a charter, plus catering, plus alcohol. I added it to the mental log. Item 3, projected future expense, yacht charter, status pending. Jessica. I am going to give you one piece of advice, I said, my voice dropping to that professional register I use when I am explaining to a CEO that he is going to prison. Do not sign anything he sends you. Do not let him put your name on any of his accounts. And do not, under any circumstances, accept any money from him. Why, she challenged, because you want to keep all the money for yourself. No, I said, because it is evidence. She went silent for a moment, then she huffed. You are crazy. You have lost your mind. He is living the dream, Regina. He is living the life of a king, and you are just a sad ex-wife auditing his happiness because you have none of your own. Do you know what he said to me? He said, "Tell Regina thanks for the starter capital." He said he turned your boring savings into a lifestyle. He asked if you were crying yet. So tell me, Regina, are you crying? Are you regretting pushing him away? Are you looking at his Instagram and wishing you were that girl in the passenger seat of the Lamborghini? I looked at the photo of the Lamborghini on my screen. I looked at the timestamp. I looked at the location tag. I thought about the IRS whistleblower form I had submitted 10 days ago. I thought about the bank fraud investigation that was currently open and gathering data. Jealousy was not the emotion I was feeling. What I was feeling was anticipation. It was the feeling of watching a man walk a tightrope over a pit of alligators while wearing a blindfold. I am not crying, Jessica, I said, and I am certainly not regretting anything. Then what are you doing? She demanded. What do you have to say to him? He's waiting for you to beg him to come back. He wants to know that you are suffering. So give me a message. Tell me what to tell him. I smiled, a slow, cold smile that terrified my assistants when they saw it. Tell him to keep the receipts. Jessica paused, confused. What? That is it. Keep the receipts. Yes, I said. Tell him to keep every single receipt. The receipt for the Lamborghini, the receipt for the watch, the receipt for the dinners, the receipt for the yacht. Tell him to organize them by date. Tell him to make photocopies. Why, she asked, her voice faltering slightly. Why does he need receipts if he is rich? Because I said, leaning into the microphone, the IRS loves a paper trail, Jessica. And when they come for him, and they are coming, it will be very helpful for his public defender if he can prove exactly where the money went. It will not save him from prison, but it might shave a few months off his sentence. You are lying, she whispered. You are bluffing. I am a forensic accountant, Jessica. I do not bluff. I audit. Tell him happy birthday, and tell him to enjoy the yacht. It will be a lovely memory for him to hold on to when he is sleeping on a metal cot. I hung up the phone. I did not wait for her response. I did not need to hear her sputtering denial. I turned back to my spreadsheet. I typed in a new note. Subject advised via third party to retain documentation of illicit expenditures. Date today. Time 11 a.m. I took another sip of coffee. Regina King 1, Terrence King 0. I looked at the picture of the Lamborghini again. It really was a hideous color, neon green, the color of money, and the color of envy. But mostly the color of a man who was screaming for attention so loudly that he woke up the federal government. I went back to work. The first 10 days were just the warm-up. The real show was about to begin, and I had a front row seat. The notification came in at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. It was a soft ping on my desktop computer, a sound so innocuous that no one else in the office would have noticed it. But to me, it sounded like a gavel banging in a courtroom. It was an alert from the fraud monitoring service of the business banking division. Alert. Transaction declined. Merchant Cartier Design District, Miami. Amount $42,000. Reason code 05 do not honor. I sat back in my chair and took a slow, deliberate sip of my lukewarm coffee. Do not honor. It is my favorite phrase in the banking lexicon. It is the polite corporate way of saying absolutely not. It means the bank has flagged the account. It means the safety protocols I triggered with my phone call yesterday have finally kicked in. I closed my eyes for a moment and let myself imagine the scene. I know Terrence. I know exactly how he operates. He would have walked into Cartier with his chest puffed out. He would have been wearing that ridiculous gold chain he bought last week. Tiffany would be clinging to his arm looking at the diamond engagement rings. He had promised her a ring. Not just any ring, but a rock. He wanted to lock her down. He wanted to prove to her and to himself that he was a big shot. I could see the sales associate. Probably a man in a sharp suit who smelled like sandalwood. He would have offered them sparkling water. He would have brought out the velvet tray. Terrence would have pointed to the biggest, clearest stone in the case. He would have slapped the corporate black card on the glass counter with a smirk. And then the silence. That long, awkward silence while the machine processes. The sales associate smiling politely while staring at the screen. The furrowed brow. The second attempt. The whispered apology. "I am sorry, sir, but the card has been declined." I opened the banking portal to see the fallout. The attempts were coming in rapid succession now. Transaction declined. Cartier, 42,000. Transaction declined. Cartier, 10,000. He was trying to split the payment. Transaction declined. Prime 112 Steakhouse, $300. He was trying to buy lunch to smooth things over. Transaction declined. A TM withdrawal, $500. He was desperate for cash. The account was frozen solid. Not just the credit card, but the checking account too. I had flagged the entire profile for suspicious activity related to potential embezzlement. When you use the E-word, banks do not take chances. They lock everything down until the compliance officer can review the file. And since I am the guarantor, and I am the one who filed the report, that review was going to take a very long time. My phone rang 7 minutes later. I let it ring. I watched the screen light up with his name. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to stand on the hot pavement in Miami with a humiliated mistress and a useless piece of plastic and feel the panic rising in his throat. It rang to voicemail. He called again immediately, and again. On the fourth call I answered. I did not say hello. I did not ask how he was. I answered with my professional voice, the one I use when I am speaking to IRS agents. "This is Regina. Regina, you bit." The sound of his voice was distorted by rage and bad reception. He was screaming so loud the microphone was peaking. "What did you do? What the hell did you do to the accounts?" I kept typing on my keyboard. The rhythmic clacking of the keys was the background music to his meltdown. "I am going to need you to lower your voice, Terrence. I am at work. Unlike some people, I have a job to do." "Do not play games with me," he roared. "I am at Cartier. I am trying to buy a ring and the card is not working. The guy said it is a code 05. He said I have to call the bank. I called the bank and they said the account is under review for fraud. They said the primary account holder flagged it. That is you. You flagged it." I paused my typing. I took a breath. "Oh, that. Yes, I did receive a notification about some unusual activity." "Unusual activity," he screamed. "It is my money. I am the president of the company. I can spend it however I want. Unfreeze it, Regina. Unfreeze it right now, or I swear to God I will fly back there and what, Terrence?" I cut him off, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. "What exactly will you do? Will you hit me? Will you threaten me? Because I am recording this call just like I recorded the last one. And I think the federal magistrate would love to hear you threaten a witness." He went silent. I could hear his heavy breathing. I could hear traffic in the background. And faintly, I could hear a woman's voice. It was Tiffany. "Terry, this is embarrassing. People are looking. Can we just go?" I smiled. The crack in the facade. Tiffany did not sign up for a man whose credit card gets declined. She signed up for the fantasy. And the fantasy just ran out of battery. Terrence covered the phone, but I could still hear him hissing at her. "Shut up, Tiff. Just wait a second. It is a banking error. My wife messed up the paperwork." I spoke clearly into the phone. "I did not mess up the paperwork, Terrence. This is standard procedure." He came back on the line. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back in my chair. "Terrence, you are the president of King Consulting Group. You withdrew $450,000 of corporate funds. You moved it to a personal crypto wallet. And now you are attempting to purchase luxury jewelry in another state, to the bank's fraud algorithm that looks like money laundering. It is not money laundering," he spat. "It is my profit." That is not how it works, I explained patiently, as if I were talking to a slow child. You cannot just take profit whenever you feel like it. There are rules, there are audits. And since I am the chief financial officer on paper and the personal guarantor of that loan, I have a fiduciary duty to ensure the funds are being used for legitimate business purposes. I could practically hear the gears grinding in his empty head. So just tell them it is business. Tell them I am buying, I don't know, assets. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Assets. Terrence, a diamond ring for your mistress is not a business asset, unless you are planning to open a pawn shop. Look, here is the situation. The bank has initiated a forensic audit of the account. They want to know where every single penny of that $450,000 went. He started to stammer, but I put most of it in crypto. It is an investment. That is fine, I said. But you need to prove it. Here is what is going to happen. You have until the 30th of this month. That is 10 days from now. You need to provide a full accounting of the funds. I need receipts. I need invoices. I need the wallet address for the crypto. I need a written explanation of how these expenses relate to the consulting business. And if I don't, he asked, his voice trembling slightly. If you don't, I said, my voice hardening, then the bank will classify that money as theft. They will revoke the loan. They will demand immediate repayment of the full principal plus penalties, and since the account is frozen, you won't be able to pay it, which means you will be in default. And since you signed the fraud affidavit when we opened the account, they will likely refer the case to the FBI. There was a long silence on the line, the kind of silence where a man realizes the walls are closing in. You are doing this on purpose, he whispered. You are trying to ruin me. I am not doing anything. Terrence, I said, I am just following the law. I told you. I am an accountant. I deal in facts. The fact is you took corporate money and went on a shopping spree. Now you have to answer for it. Regina, please. He sounded desperate now. The anger was gone, replaced by fear. Just unfreeze it for today. I need to pay the hotel bill. They are going to kick us out. I need to buy food. I have no cash. I looked at the sticky note on my monitor, the one with the IRS reference number. You have cash, I said. Cash. You took $50,000 out in cash last week. Surely you haven't spent all of that already. Unless you lost it or gave it away. He didn't answer. I knew the answer. The cash was gone. He had probably blown it at the club or on the down payment for the car. Regina, I am begging you. Tiffany is... She is getting upset. She thinks I am broke. Well, I said simply, technically right now you are broke. Actually, you are worse than broke. You are in debt. Deep debt. Terry, come on. I heard Tiffany's voice again, louder this time. She sounded annoyed. My friends are at the beach club. I am not standing out here in the heat while you argue with your ex. You said you were rich. You said you were a king. This is lame. I heard him fumble with the phone. Baby, just give me a minute. It is a mix-up. It does not look like a mix-up. It looks like your card got declined. Call me when you figure it out. I am taking an Uber. I heard the sound of high heels clicking away on the pavement. I heard Terrence calling after her. Tiff, wait. Baby, wait. She left you, didn't she? I asked. He breathed heavily into the phone. You did this. You poisoned her against me. No, Terrence. You did this. You built a relationship on a foundation of lies and stolen money. And now the money is frozen and the truth is coming out. You are not a king. You are a man with a maxed out credit card and a looming federal indictment. I'm going to fix this, he said, trying to sound tough but failing miserably. I'm going to sell the crypto. It went up. I made money. I will pay back the loan, and I will still have enough to leave you in the dust. Good luck with that, I said. But remember the 30th. If I do not have that paperwork by 5 p.m. on the 30th, I have to file the suspicious activity report with the Treasury Department. It is out of my hands. It is the law. I'm going to kill you, he muttered. I paused. I saved the recording. Add that to the file, I thought. Terrence, I said. If I were you, I would stop threatening the person who controls your financial destiny and start looking for a receipt scanner. You have a lot of work to do. And Terrence, what he snapped, enjoy the walk back to the hotel. I hear it is very humid in Miami today." I hung up the phone. I sat there for a moment listening to the hum of the office. My heart was beating a little faster, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I had him. He thought the 30th was the deadline. He thought he had 10 days to fix it. He didn't know that I had already filed the report with the IRS. He didn't know that the bank investigation was already moving toward prosecution. I just gave him the date to make him panic, to make him sloppy. When people panic, they make mistakes. He said he was going to sell the crypto. Good. That would create another taxable event, another transaction for the IRS to track, another link in the chain. I looked at the log. Transaction declined. Cartier, transaction declined. Steakhouse. He was cut off. No hotel, no food, no gas for the Lamborghini, and now no Tiffany. I knew girls like Tiffany. I see them all the time in my line of work. They adhere to a very strict code of conduct. No money, no honey. She wouldn't stick around for the downfall. She would be on a yacht with another guy by sunset, and Terrence would be alone in a city that eats broke people alive. I turned back to my work. I had a legitimate audit to finish for a client, a real company with real assets. But part of my brain was still in Miami. I imagined Terrence walking down the street sweating in his expensive linen suit. I imagined him checking his pockets for loose change. I imagined him realizing that the Lamborghini was low on gas and he couldn't fill it up. He wanted to live the high life. Well, welcome to the low life, Terrence. Welcome to the reality of consequences. I checked my email. A notification from the bank. Account status frozen pending investigation. Subject notified. I smiled. Step 2 was complete. He was immobilized. Now it was time for step 3. The squeeze. I picked up my pen and wrote a date on my calendar. The 30th Judgment Day. But honestly, he wouldn't make it to the 30th. He would crack before then. They always do, especially when they are hungry. And Terrence King had never known hunger in his life. I had fed him for 7 years. Now he was going to starve. The 30th of the month arrived with the humid heaviness of a tropical storm. In Atlanta, I sat in my air-conditioned office, sipping green tea and watching the clock on my wall tick toward 5 p.m. In Miami, Terrence was sitting at the outdoor bar of a mid-range seafood restaurant in South Beach. He was not at the W Hotel anymore. They had evicted him 3 days ago when his credit card declined for the 5th time and he could not produce a valid backup method of payment. He was drinking a domestic beer, nursing it to make it last, because he was down to his last $50 in cash. He was wearing his linen suit, but it was wrinkled now. The crisp white shirt was stained with sweat and desperation. He was sitting there scrolling through his phone, probably trying to find a friend who would wire him money or a couch he could crash on. He looked pathetic. He looked like a man who had lost everything. But he had not lost everything yet. He still had his freedom. That was about to change in exactly 3 minutes. I was not in Miami physically, but I had a front row seat to the show. The private investigator I hired, Marcus, was parked across the street in a rental sedan with a long lens camera trained directly on Terrence's table. He was live streaming the feed to my laptop. I watched Terrence signal the bartender for another drink. He looked over his shoulder nervously. He was paranoid. He thought I was going to send someone to serve him divorce papers. He thought the worst thing that could happen to him was a subpoena. He had no idea. At 4:58 p.m., 2 black SUVs with tinted windows pulled up to the curb in front of the restaurant. They did not park legally. They pulled right up onto the sidewalk, blocking the entrance. The doors opened in perfect synchronization. Terrence did not notice them at first. He was too busy arguing with the bartender about the price of happy hour shrimp. But then the atmosphere shifted. You know when sharks enter the water and all the little fish scatter? That is what happened on the sidewalk. Pedestrians stopped walking. Tourists lowered their selfie sticks. The air went still. 6 men and 2 women stepped out of the SUVs. They were not wearing police uniforms. They were wearing blue windbreakers with yellow bold lettering on the back, IRSCID. Those 6 letters are the scariest letters in the American alphabet. Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. These are not the people who audit your receipts. These are the people who kick down doors. These are the only federal agents who are accountants first and law enforcement officers second. They carry calculators in one pocket and Glocks in the other, and they have a conviction rate of 98.5%. If they show up to arrest you, it means they already have the case won. They moved toward the bar with terrifying speed. They did not run. They stalked. I watched Terrence on my screen. He looked up. He saw the blue jackets. His eyes went wide. For a split second, I saw him calculate his options. Run, fight, freeze. He chose freeze. Agent Miller, the lead investigator on the case, marched right up to Terrence's bar stool. I could not hear the audio, but I knew exactly what he was saying. I had rehearsed the script in my head 1,000 times. Terrence King, federal agents, stand up and put your hands where I can see them. Terrence stood up slowly. His hands were shaking so bad he knocked his beer over. The amber liquid spilled across the bar, dripping onto his wrinkled linen pants. He started talking. I could see his mouth moving fast. He was using his hands to gesture. He was probably saying, "Do you know who I am? I am a business owner. This is a mistake. Call my accountant." Oh, Terrence. They did call your accountant. Who do you think gave them the GPS coordinates of your phone? Agent Miller did not look interested in Terrence's speech. He spun Terrence around and slammed him against the bar counter. The patrons of the restaurant gasped. Phones came out. Everyone loves a spectacle. The handcuffs came out, shiny silver steel glinting in the Miami sun. They clicked around Terrence's wrists. 1, 2. Regina King sat in her office in Atlanta and let out a breath she had been holding for 15 days. The charges were not read out loud for the crowd, but I knew what they were. I had practically written the indictment myself. Count 1, wire fraud. Count 2, tax evasion. Count 3, money laundering. That third one was the nail in the coffin. You see, when I analyzed Terrence's crypto transactions, I noticed a pattern. He was not moving the money all at once. He was moving it in batches. $9,000 here, $9,500 there, $9,900 there. In his small criminal brain, he thought he was being smart. He knew that banks report transactions over $10,000 to the federal government. So he kept his transfers just under the limit. He did not know that there is a specific law against exactly that behavior. It is called structuring, and it is a felony. By trying to avoid the reporting requirement, he had committed a crime that carries a 5-year mandatory prison sentence. I had highlighted those transactions in red on the spreadsheet I sent to the IRS. I added a note that said, "Subject appears to be engaged in a pattern of structuring to conceal illicit assets." I handed him to them on a silver platter. I watched as they patted him down. They took his phone. They took his wallet. They took the fake gold watch off his wrist. They treated him like a common criminal because that is exactly what he was. Terrence looked around wildly. He was looking for help. He was looking for Tiffany. But Tiffany was long gone. She was probably 3 margaritas deep at a pool party in Brickell by now. He looked directly at the camera lens of my private investigator. For a second, it felt like he was looking right at me. His face was a mask of pure terror. He was crying. I could see the tears mixing with the sweat on his face. He was shouting something now. I texted Marcus. "What is he saying?" A moment later, Marcus replied, "He is screaming, 'My wife did this.' He is screaming, 'Call Regina.'" I laughed. A soft, cold laugh. Now he wanted to call Regina. Now he wanted the boring accountant. Now he wanted the woman who nagged him about saving money. Because he finally realized that money cannot save you from the federal government. Only a good lawyer can. And good lawyers cost money that he did not have. The agents grabbed him by the arms and marched him toward the waiting SUVs. The walk of shame. It is a long walk when you are surrounded by tourists in bikinis and guys selling cigars. Everyone was filming. This video would be on TikTok within the hour. Hashtag Miami arrest. Hashtag fake rich. He stumbled as they shoved him toward the car. He lost one of his loafers. It lay there on the sidewalk, a solitary Gucci loafer abandoned in the chaos. A perfect symbol of his life. Flashy, expensive, and left behind in the dirt. One of the agents grabbed the back of his head and pushed him into the back seat of the SUV. The door slammed shut. The sound of finality. The other agents piled into the vehicles. The engines roared to life. And just like that, they were gone. The entire raid took less than 4 minutes. 4 minutes to end a man's life. 4 minutes to dismantle his ego. 4 minutes to validate 7 years of my patience. I closed the laptop screen. The show was over. The feed went black. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the leasing office of the W Hotel. A cheerful woman answered. W South Beach Guest Services. Hi, I said, my voice bright and helpful. I am calling regarding a guest you had recently, Mr. Terrence King. I believe he left some belongings behind. Oh yes, Mrs. King. We actually have his luggage in storage. We were waiting for him to settle his outstanding bill of $12,000. Well, I said, I am afraid Mr. King will not be coming back to settle that bill. He has been detained by federal agents for financial crimes. There was a gasp on the other line. Oh my God! Yes, it is very tragic. However, as his estranged wife, I just wanted to let you know that you are free to dispose of his items. I have no interest in reclaiming them. And as for the bill, I would suggest you file a claim with the bankruptcy court. He has 0 assets. I hung up before she could ask any questions. I did not want his clothes. I did not want his shoes. I wanted him to have nothing. I wanted him to be processed into the Miami-Dade Detention Center wearing a stained linen suit and 1 shoe. I wanted him to sit in a holding cell with real criminals and explain that he was there because he tried to outsmart his accountant wife. I walked over to my office window and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was a beautiful evening. I felt lighter. The weight of his betrayal was gone, replaced by the satisfaction of justice. He had tried to destroy me with a text message. I had destroyed him with a tax form. The pen is indeed mightier than the sword, especially when the pen is held by a black woman who knows the tax code. I packed up my bag. I turned off the lights in my office. I was going to go home. I was going to order a pizza. I was going to pour myself a glass of real champagne, and then I was going to wait for the phone call, because I knew Jessica would be calling, and I wanted to be fully rested so I could enjoy every single second of her panic. Good luck, Terrence. Hope you like the color orange. It matches your eyes when you cry. You know the old saying, everybody wants to be a diamond, but nobody wants to get cut. Or maybe in Terrence's case, the saying should be, everybody wants to ride in the Lamborghini, but nobody wants to ride in the police van. I sat in my living room with a glass of Pinot Grigio, watching the fallout happen in real time. It is fascinating to watch how quickly loyalty evaporates when the federal government gets involved. Terrence had spent the last 2 weeks bragging about his support system. He bragged about Jessica, his loving sister, who understood him better than I ever did. He bragged about Tiffany, the ride-or-die chick who made him feel like a king. Well, the king was currently sitting in a holding cell at the Federal Detention Center in Miami, waiting for his arraignment. And like every prisoner, he was given the right to make a phone call. He did not call me. He knew better than that. He knew I was the one who put him there. He called Jessica. I know this because my phone rang about 20 minutes after his booking photo was uploaded to the system. It was Jessica. But she was not calling to brag this time. She was calling because she was in a full-blown panic. I let it go to voicemail. I wanted to hear the desperation in her voice. I wanted a permanent record of her hypocrisy. She left a 3-minute voicemail. I played it on speakerphone while I swirled my wine. Regina, pick up. You have to pick up. He called me. Oh my God, Regina, he called me from jail. He was crying. He said they denied him bail because he is a flight risk. He said he needs a lawyer. He said he needs $50,000 for a retainer. He wants me to ask David for the money. David is her husband, a very wealthy, very white corporate attorney who comes from a family that traces their lineage back to the Mayflower. David tolerates Terrence at Thanksgiving, but he certainly does not respect him. I listened to the rest of the voicemail. I cannot ask David for $50,000, Regina. We are in the middle of closing on the summer house in the Hamptons. David is up for a partnership at his firm. Do you know what it would look like if his brother-in-law was indicted for federal wire fraud? It would be a scandal. It would ruin us. I told Terrence I could not do it. I told him he has to call a public defender. He screamed at me, Regina. He said I was abandoning him. But I'm not abandoning him. I'm just protecting my family. You have to help him. You are his wife. You have the money. Please, Regina, fix this. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my wine on the rug. Protecting her family. 2 weeks ago, she stood in my hallway and told me I was the reason Terrence was unhappy. She told me I was aggressive. She told me I needed to support black men. She lectured me on loyalty and culture. But the moment that loyalty required a financial sacrifice, the moment it threatened her comfortable life with her rich husband, she cut Terrence loose faster than a surgeon. She was worried about David's partnership. She was worried about the summer house. She did not care that her brother was facing 20 years in prison. She only cared that his mugshot might look bad at the country club. I did not call her back. I deleted the voicemail. Jessica had made her choice. She chose her lifestyle over her blood. And honestly, I was not surprised. Jessica always liked the idea of being supportive, but she hated the reality of doing the work. So Terrence was sitting in a cell with no lawyer and no sister. But what about the love of his life? What about Tiffany, the girl who appreciated him, the girl who thanked him for the Chanel bag? Surely she was standing outside the detention center holding a sign and protesting his innocence. Surely she was selling her jewelry to pay for his bail. I opened Instagram. I typed in Tiffany's handle. It was not hard to find. Her follower count had jumped by 50,000 people in the last 4 hours. She was live. I clicked on the video. There she was. She was sitting in a hotel room, not the penthouse at the W Hotel. It looked like a cheap motel near the airport. She was wearing a gray hoodie and no makeup. Her hair was messy. She looked small and fragile. She had mastered the sad influencer aesthetic perfectly. She was crying, but they were dry tears, the kind of tears you practice in the mirror. "Hey guys," she whispered into the camera. Her voice was trembling. "I just wanted to come on here and address everything because I see the comments and I see the videos." She took a deep, shaky breath. "I am a victim here. I want everyone to know that. I had no idea what Terrence was doing. I met him 2 months ago. He told me he was a crypto investor. He told me he was divorced. He showed me bank statements. He showed me the cars. I am just a 20-year-old girl. I believed him. How was I supposed to know he stole all that money from his wife?" I watched the comments roll in. "Poor Tiffany. He manipulated you. Stay strong, Queen." She wiped her eyes. "It was scary, you guys. The agents came out of nowhere with guns. I thought I was going to die. And then I find out that everything he gave me was bought with stolen money. I feel so used. I feel so dirty. I have already spoken to the FBI. I gave them everything. I gave them the bags. I gave them the jewelry. I am cooperating fully because I want justice just as much as anyone else." I raised an eyebrow. She gave them the jewelry. That was a lie. I saw the glint of the Cartier bracelet on her wrist when she raised her hand to wipe her fake tears. She was hiding the assets. She was probably planning to sell them on eBay next week once the heat died down. "Please stop sending me hate," she continued. "I am not a gold digger. I fell in love with a man who I thought was successful. I did not know he was a fraud. I am traumatized. I do not know how I am going to get home. I am stuck in Miami with nothing." Then she did something that made me respect her hustle in a twisted way. "If anyone wants to help me get a ticket back to my mom's house, my Cash App is pinned in the comments. Anything helps. I just want to go home and heal." I watched the notifications pop up on the screen. User sent $50. User sent $20. User sent $100. She was monetizing his arrest. She was turning his downfall into her payday. Terrence was sitting in a concrete box facing a federal indictment, and the woman he left me for was using his name to beg for donations on the internet. She did not care about him. She never did. She was a parasite just like him, but she was a smarter parasite. When the host body started dying, she detached and found a new way to feed. I closed the app. The 2 women who were supposed to be his army had deserted him before the battle even started. Jessica abandoned him to save her reputation. Tiffany abandoned him to save her brand. And me, the boring, aggressive, controlling wife. I was the only one who had actually tried to save him from himself. I was the one who stopped him from buying stupid things. I was the one who forced him to have health insurance. I was the one who tried to build him a legitimate business. But he did not want legitimate. He wanted a fantasy. Well, he got his fantasy. And now he was waking up to the reality. I imagined him sitting in that cell, using his one phone call to call Jessica and hearing her excuses. I imagined him asking the guard if his girlfriend was there and getting a laugh in response. He was alone, truly completely alone. And the saddest part was that he deserved it. He had surrounded himself with people who loved his money, not his soul. And when the money was gone, the love went with it. I took another sip of wine. It was funny. Jessica called me aggressive. Tiffany called me old. Terrence called me controlling. But right now, I was the only one sitting in a paid-off house, drinking expensive wine with a clean criminal record. I looked at the empty spot on the wall where the TV used to be. I did not miss it. I liked the silence. It was peaceful. My phone rang again. It was a number I did not recognize. Probably a public defender, or maybe Terrence trying to call collect. I let it ring. I was done being the fixer. I was done being the safety net. I was the plaintiff now. And plaintiffs do not take calls from the defendant after business hours. I turned off my phone. Tomorrow I would have to give a statement to the bank. Tomorrow I would have to talk to the FBI. Tomorrow I would have to continue the process of dismantling his life, piece by piece. But for tonight, I was going to enjoy the silence. I wondered if Tiffany made her flight goal. Probably. She was good at playing the victim. I wondered if Jessica told her husband the truth. Probably not. She would lie to protect her image, just like Terrence lied to protect his ego. They were all the same, fake people living fake lives. I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights were twinkling in the distance. Somewhere out there, Terrence was looking at a concrete wall. He wanted a new life. He wanted excitement. He got it. Welcome to the system, Terrence. Jessica won't save you. Tiffany won't save you. And I certainly won't save you. You are on your own, just like you wanted. The Federal Detention Center in downtown Miami smells like bleach and unwashed bodies. It is a smell that sticks to your clothes and gets trapped in your hair. But today, I did not mind the smell. Today, the smell was the sweet perfume of victory. I walked through the metal detector with my head held high. I was not wearing the modest cardigans I used to wear to make Terrence feel comfortable. I was wearing a white Yves Saint Laurent power suit that cost more than the down payment on the Lamborghini he tried to buy. My heels clicked against the linoleum floor with a sharp, authoritative rhythm. Click, clack, click, clack. It was the sound of a woman who owns the building walking into a room full of tenants. The guard at the desk looked at me. He looked at my suit. He looked at the crocodile Birkin bag I had left in the locker. He whistled low. "You here for a client counselor?" he asked. I smiled. "No, I am here for my husband. Or should I say, the defendant." They led me to a private attorney-client room. I had pulled some strings with my old contacts at the bureau to get us a contact visit. I wanted him to see me up close. I wanted him to see the glow of my skin. I wanted him to smell the Chanel No. 5 that he tried to replace with cheap vanilla body spray. I sat down on the metal chair and waited. 5 minutes later, the heavy steel door buzzed open. Terrence walked in. If I had any lingering feelings of love or pity, they evaporated the moment I saw him. He looked like a shell of a human being. The linen suit was gone, replaced by a bright orange jumpsuit that was 2 sizes too big. His head was shaved because of lice in the holding tank. He had lost weight. His skin was sallow. He looked 20 years older than the man who had FaceTimed me from the penthouse 2 weeks ago. He saw me and his knees almost buckled. He shuffled toward the table, the chains around his ankles clanking against the floor. He sat down and immediately burst into tears. "Regina, oh God, Regina, you came. I knew you would come." He reached for my hand. I pulled it back as if he were radioactive. I placed my hands on the table, folding them neatly on top of a manila folder I had brought with me. "Stop crying, Terrence," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "You are embarrassing yourself, and you are staining the table." He wiped his nose on his sleeve. It was a disgusting motion. "Regina, you have to get me out of here. It is hell in here. There are gangs. The food is inedible. They took my shoes, Regina. I am barefoot in my cell. You have to help me. I am sorry. I am so sorry." I watched him sob. I watched the snot run down his face. This was the man who called me a hag. This was the man who called me boring. "It was not my fault," he stammered. It was Tiffany. She made me do it. She kept asking for things. She said if I loved her, I would buy her the car. She said if I was a real man, I would take her to Miami. I was confused, Regina. I was going through a midlife crisis. She manipulated me. She is a witch. I raised an eyebrow. That is funny, because I watched her live stream yesterday, and she said you manipulated her. She said you told her you were a crypto billionaire. It seems like you two have very different versions of the story. She is lying, he screamed, slamming his hand on the table. The guard in the corner took a step forward, but I held up a hand. I was not afraid of Terrence. He was toothless now. She is a liar, Regina. You know me. You know I am a good man. I just made a mistake. A financial mistake. You can fix it. You are a wizard with numbers. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them I had permission. Tell them we can pay it back. I will get a job. I will work 3 jobs. I will pay back every cent. Just please get these charges dropped. I let him finish. I let him pour out every excuse, every lie, every pathetic plea. When he finally ran out of breath, I opened the manila folder. I pulled out a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table. Terrence looked at it. His eyes were red and swollen. "What is this?" he asked. "It is a closing statement," I said. "I sold the house, Terrence." His jaw dropped. "You sold the house. But that is our home. That is where we were going to raise our family. You cannot sell it without my signature." I leaned forward. "Actually, I can." And I did. "You seem to forget that I bought that house 3 years before I met you. It is a premarital asset. Your name was never on the deed. I let you live there rent-free. I let you pretend it was yours. But it was never yours. I sold it yesterday to a very nice couple for 20% over the asking price. Cash offer." He stared at the paper. "So you have the money," he whispered, hope creeping into his voice. "You have the cash. You can pay the bank. You can pay the restitution." I laughed. A short, sharp bark of laughter. "Pay the bank? Terrence, why would I use my money to pay for your crime? But you have to." He whined. "If you don't pay it, I will go to prison for 10 years. I pulled out another document. This one was a letter from an insurance company. "Read this," I commanded. He squinted at the text. "Zurich Insurance. Claim approval. Director's liability coverage. Do you remember when I set up the consulting company?" I asked. "Do you remember all those papers I made you sign that you didn't read because you were too busy looking at your reflection in the window? One of those papers was an application for director and officer liability insurance. It protects the company in case the director does something negligent or criminal, like, say, embezzling $500,000. I tapped the paper with my manicured fingernail. "The insurance company has agreed to cover the loss. They have reimbursed King Consulting Group for the full $450,000 minus the deductible. So the company is whole. My company is whole." He looked confused. "So it is fixed. The money is paid back. I can go home." I shook my head slowly. "You really do not understand how money works, do you, Terrence? The insurance company paid me, but now they want their money back from you. It is called subrogation. They are not going to forgive the debt. They are going to sue you, and since you are going to prison, they are going to garnish your wages. For the rest of your life, every dime you make stamping license plates or scrubbing toilets in the cell block will go to Zurich Insurance. You are going to be working for them until the day you die." He slumped back in his chair, defeated. "But what about the house money?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing with the profit from the house?" I smiled, a genuine radiant smile. "I am going to Fiji. I booked a first-class ticket this morning. I am going to stay in a bungalow over the water. I am going to drink cocktails that do not have umbrellas in them, and I am going to toast to my freedom." He started to cry again, soft, broken sobs. "You are heartless. You are cold. How can you do this to me? I helped you. I supported you." I stood up. I smoothed the front of my white suit. I did not want to get any prison dust on it. "There is one last thing, Terrence. A little parting gift." I pulled out a check. It was a photocopy of a government-issued check. "Do you know what the IRS whistleblower program is?" I asked. He shook his head blindly. "It is a program where the government pays people who report tax cheats. Since I reported you for tax evasion and structuring, the IRS was very grateful. They seized the remaining funds in your crypto wallet. They seized the Lamborghini. They seized the jewelry. And because I gave them the information on a silver platter, they awarded me 15% of the total recovery value. I pointed to the number on the check. $67,500. That is my cut, Terrence. That is my bonus for turning you in. His eyes went wide. He looked like he was going to vomit. You got paid. You got paid to send me to prison. I picked up my bag. I did not just get paid, Terrence. I got a raise. I made more money divorcing you than you made in 7 years of marriage. I turned to walk away. Wait. Regina, wait. He scrambled up, reaching for me, but the chains held him back. Do not leave me here. Please. I love you. I stopped at the door. I looked back at him one last time. He looked small. He looked orange. He looked like a mistake I had finally corrected. You do not love me, Terrence. You loved the lifestyle I provided. And now you have a new lifestyle. 3 hots and a cot. Enjoy it. I buzzed the door. The guard opened it immediately. Regina, he screamed. Regina, please. I walked out into the hallway. I did not look back. I walked past the guard desk. I walked past the metal detectors. I walked out into the blinding Miami sunlight. I took a deep breath of fresh air. It smelled like salt water and freedom. I checked my phone. A notification from my bank. Deposit received. $67,500. I smiled. I hailed a taxi. To the airport, please. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. You look like you had a good day, ma'am. I put on my sunglasses. The best day, I said. The absolute best day. I leaned back in the seat and watched the prison disappear in the distance. Good luck, Terrence. You played the game, and I won the championship. I stepped onto the curb outside the Federal Detention Center and took the deepest breath of my life. The Miami air was thick and humid, but to me it tasted like victory. Behind me, the heavy metal doors clanged shut with a sound that felt like a final period at the end of a very long and very bad sentence. I looked down at my phone. It was vibrating in my hand. It was Jessica again. She had probably realized that her brother was not coming home, and she was looking for someone to blame. She wanted to scream at me. She wanted to tell me I was cruel. She wanted to guilt-trip me into paying for a lawyer. I looked at her name on the screen. Sister-in-law. I tapped the info button. I scrolled down to the bottom in red letters. Block caller. I pressed it without a second of hesitation. I did not just block a number. I blocked the drama. I blocked the judgment. I blocked the years of subtle racism and not so subtle disrespect. Jessica and her country club problems were no longer my concern. She could explain to her mother why her precious brother was wearing an orange jumpsuit. Then I opened my messages app. I scrolled down to the thread named husband. The last message in the thread was from him. It was the photo of the Lamborghini steering wheel. The timestamp was 2 weeks ago. The number was already disconnected. I knew he had thrown the burner phone away or the feds had seized it. But that did not matter. I typed 2 words. Good luck. I hit send. The message turned green immediately. Not delivered. I smiled. It was a message to the universe. It was a message to the ghost of the marriage I used to have. It was a message to the man who thought he could discard me like a receipt. I locked my phone and put it back in my bag. The taxi pulled up to the curb. I slid into the back seat. To the airport, I told the driver. He pulled away from the curb, leaving the prison behind. I watched it fade in the rearview mirror until it was just a gray smudge against the blue sky. I turned to the camera to address you one last time. If you have watched this story from the beginning, you know that I did not ask for this war. I wanted a marriage. I wanted a family. I wanted to build an empire with the man I loved. But he chose to steal from the empire instead of building it. Ladies, listen to me closely. Love is beautiful. Love is important. But do not ever let love make you blind to the math. Terrence thought I was boring because I tracked every penny. He thought I was controlling because I understood the tax code, but in the end, it was the math that saved me. It was the paper trail that protected me. He is going to spend the next 5 years in a cage because he thought he was smarter than the system. And I am going to spend the next week in a bungalow in Fiji because I knew how to work the system. Do not let anyone tell you that you are too aggressive. Do not let anyone tell you that you are too ambitious. And never ever let a man tell you that you do not need to worry about the finances. Knowledge is power. Financial literacy is self-defense. My name is Regina King. I am 34 years old. I am a senior forensic accountant. I am a whistleblower. And as of this moment, I am a free single woman with a very healthy bank account. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed watching a fraudster get exactly what he deserved, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice and revenge, and share this video with a friend who needs a reminder to check their credit report. I am signing off now. My flight leaves in 2 hours, and I have a date with a glass of champagne in the first-class lounge. Terrence got his luck. I made my own. Stay sharp, stay wealthy, and always keep the receipts.